Hi, fellow knitter. This is Vanessa with Vanessa Smith Designs, and this video is all about picking up underarm stitches and getting your sleeves off to a good start. This sweater was knit from the top down, and I casted on stitches at the underarm when I separated the sleeves from the body. Now I'm ready to pick up the underarm stitches, and I wanted to show you how I do that without creating those ugly holes you often see in this area. Ignore my ends while I show you how this will look. So here's the other underarm, and you can see the result is very clean. There are no holes or gaps, and this technique actually works well for all kinds of stitch patterns. So I use this also for stockinette sweaters, not just the lace pattern I used here. And I've actually happily settled on this technique after trying lots of them over my sweater knitting journey. So let's get started. First, you're going to want to place a removable stitch marker on the fabric halfway between the underarm cast-on stitches. And your sleeve stitches should be on your needles of choice. For a top-down sweater, the cast-on stitches will be upside-down V's, as I'm showing here. There's one cast-on stitch, and there is the other, for a total of 2 on this side of my marker. And then we're going to grab our working needle and insert the tip right into the center of the first cast-on stitch to the left of the marker. Go ahead and push it through. Grab your working yarn and make sure to leave a long enough tail to weave in. And then wrap it around the needle to knit the stitch. Now, you can see I lost my strand when I tried to complete the knit stitch, and this is because the cast-on stitches are sometimes a little tight. I'm going to try again. And there we go. So if you also couldn't pull the yarn through, you can do this with a crochet hook as well. Insert the hook into the center of the cast-on stitch. Wrap the yarn around the hook and pull it through the stitch. Enlarge the stitch a little and transfer it to your needle, making sure not to twist it, and adjust the tension. If you have more than 2 cast-on stitches on each side of the marker, continue picking up the rest on this side. And after you've picked up all the cast-on stitches, you're going to pick up 2 stitches right here in this corner between the underarm stitches and the held sleeve stitches. For this step, there isn't an exact way to pick up the stitches. You'll just want to make sure you would not be creating a hole before knitting them. In my sweaters, I've noticed there's often what looks like another upside down stitch right next to the cast-on stitches. Hopefully you can see that here. I'll poke my needle through and see what it looks like. I think that looks pretty good. It's nice and firm and close to the fabric. For the second stitch, sometimes you just have to see what works. It's okay to poke around and check different spots before knitting. I'm gonna try it right here. Let's get that out of the way. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I'm picking up from a raglan line stitch, which I've also found is usually a safe spot to pick up from. But again, you'll want to check and see if that would create holes or wonky looking stitches in your project. For this sweater, it seems pretty good. I'm not getting a huge hole or gap. Also, I want to add for these stitches, I like to tighten my yarn a bit more. But I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to get ready to work my held stitches. You're just going to work them as your pattern instructs, and when you have, meet me back here after the last stitch. Alright, here we are at the end of the round, and we've got a familiar gap. Like before, we're going to pick up 2 stitches from this corner, and then we're going to pick up from the other half of the cast-on stitches, which will be upside down V's if your sweater was knit top down. At the beginning of the round, I picked up from a similar stitch to this one, so I'm going to try doing the same here. But first, here's an example of what you don't want to see when you start poking around. even this is not ideal. You'd have huge holes picking up from either of those spots. You want a spot that's small and firm like this. And that looks good. And now I'm going to look for the stitch that looks like an upside down V. There it is. And that looks good too. And now I'll pick up my remaining cast on stitches. Don't forget to use that crochet hook if you need to. So while I'm doing this, I want to explain why I emphasize picking up stitches from the upside down V's for a top down sweater. And of course, if your sweater was bottom up, you'd pick up from regular V-shaped stitches. Knitting into the actual cast on stitches following the original direction of the knitting ensures you'll get the right stitch count for the sleeves and keep the center of the sleeve aligned over the side seam. If you knit into right side up stitches for a top down sweater, you'd be knitting between the cast on stitches and end up short by 1 stitch on either side. You'd also be offsetting the center of your sleeve. So now you might be wondering what to do with the 4 extra stitches you picked up, the 2 in the corners on either side. If you're knitting one of my sweater patterns that uses this technique, I provide specific instructions for how to decrease them. But on the first round after picking up stitches, you want to knit 2 together or slip knit 2 times at each side. I like to pair each corner stitch with either a stitch picked up from the cast on or one of the previously held stitches. Knitting the 2 corner stitches together could look sloppy, so you may want to experiment with what looks good on your project. Or if you'd like some extra room in the sleeve at the bicep, you could also figure out how to decrease these stitches later. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. Please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to make sure you don't miss any tutorials. Until next time.